Hey everybody, Damon D here, and it's an honor and a pleasure to be talking with Susie McMullen from San Francisco, doom, pop, rock, shoegaze band BRUME, and their new release, Martin, is out now on Magnetic Eye Records, and they just returned from a European tour recently, so we'll get into that in a few minutes, but how's everything this evening? Susie, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So, for those that aren't familiar with the band Broom, give us a quick kind of overview of the style of music because I kind of threw out a lot of different genres there. And as you know, as a musician, we have to label things so that people have a frame of reference. Otherwise, who knows what it is?
I don't mind that. I kind of like it too. It's how I find good music or music that I'm interested or inspired in. Sometimes you just get in a mood and you want to stay in that mood. Mine's been recently Sade, and I'm always looking
Oh,
for that same mood of Sade. And it's hard. So I kind of want things bucketed and categorized and like sounds like Sade because
yeah.
I don't want to get out of that vibe. So I think that our vibe is intimate and sensitive and honest. Music for nerds who want to take a bath and
Okay.
chill out and be alone and like it. So if I would categorize all that, I think we started traditionally as a doom band. Like most artists, we kind of wanted to sound like somebody else. We wanted to sound like the shows we go to and the people we hang out with, like that was who we were and that was our vibe. And that's how we met. I mean, Jamie, the guitarist, and I met because we were kind of the only new people in San Francisco. He moved from Bristol or London, and I moved from Louisiana. And we didn't really know that many people. And so we found each other and just went to shows together before we both knew that we both played instruments. We just kind of wanted to sound like the bands we went to. I mean, we stood outside and hustled tickets for Melvin's show at least 10 times together before we started the band. I think after that, we became a little bit more confident in our songwriting. And then we both started kind of navigating in like the broom sound, which is just really it was three and now four band members. We all contribute to songwriting. It's not like I'm like, and this is the song, everyone play the part. No, I just might come up with a melody and a pseudo framework that always ends up getting changed. And then everybody else writes their own parts and contributes, everything that kind of creates the vibe. I think we've kind of excitingly moved into maybe a bit of a shoegaze vibe, which it's fun because it was unintentional, but definitely kind of what we were getting into and listening to at the moment. I mean, that was like 2 years ago writing these songs. So now, and I've always loved folk music, like Americano, bluegrass. So to me, I naturally started kind of navigating to not trying to be a cool, doom metal kid anymore, but just being a woman that wants to write stories into songs like
Right.
folk music or bluegrass music where, you would write a story and take somebody on a journey. And
Right.
so I think that's where people are like, it sounds kind of pop. Well, I think a lot of pop copies bluegrass and blues. And so when you want
Yeah.
to write like a blues song or a bluegrass song, or like every blues song, like in New Orleans, like Marva Wright, like it's always this, she's always singing about a story.
Right.
Whenever you go to like there's a place called Tabby's Blues Box in Baton Rouge. We used to go to when we were kids. And like everybody was an amazing musician that was there. And it was always a story. Like you would leave feeling like, oh, I totally understand this person. Like me,
Yeah.
he didn't really know me, but I know everything about him. And I just walked away knowing his whole story just because he sang me like three songs. And I think that kind of influenced the way I wrote music and took it almost from like a storytelling, like vocal approach instead of like start with the riff. And that's where we
Yeah.
started kind of changing it from, a doom metal band to somebody who desperately loves fuzz and strong guitars in a song, but also just wanted to tell a story. I think that might be kind of like the poppy influence.
Yeah, and what's unique is that you have this kind of, like you mentioned, slower tempo. I just found because when I saw the description, I had no idea what to expect. So when I listened to it, I was like, this is not what I expected. But then some of those labels do come in because there's some very aggressive singing on some of the tracks here. And you said you're kind of moving away from some of that doom stuff, but there's a lot of it still there in these songs. But there's also, I think, which you've kind of spoken to before, was the addition of the cello with Jackie Perez Gratz is unique and different, and that's kind of what took me. I was listening to it and I was like, well, this is very different than what I was expecting, and very different than what I've heard,
Hmm.
because that kind of heavy doom metal, yeah, I know what that, and Melvin's, yeah, I know what that is. But this cello and the vocals are really well done and in key, and the harmonies are good, and everybody can sing, and
Yeah.
it's kind of like this chill vibe. And then you just, how rude that just you're chilling, and
Explodes.
then you just explode into the void of the volcano, and it's just
Yeah,
wild
yeah.
and really great.
I
So
love
how
that.
do you?
It's
So
like
I was,
having a bunch of things in your toolkit to tell a story, right? You're like,
yeah,
okay, well, like this part of the song, I'm pissed. And, we're all old metal kids. So we're like,
yeah,
we know what to do now.
yeah,
This part of the story, you're mad. It's like, yippee, turn on the pedals. Let's kill it.
yeah,
It's exciting. Like, I wouldn't say we've abandoned the whole vibe of who we were. It's just, I think we're not scared to dabble in other parts of ourselves that might not be representative in the metal world. And so
yeah,
it we pursued that heavily, being like, okay, we're okay with the fact that like this is just a soft, sweet part, and this is actually just a super mellow, chill song. And then when it's time to get angry, we know what to do. Or when it's time to be like bold or powerful or almost like triumphant. We know that because like metal does that the best, right? Metal knows how to be angry the best, triumphant the best. Like
yeah,
they have the best like songs you want to like stand up and get aggro or get
yeah,
excited to, you know what I mean? So
yeah,
it's like
for
we have
sure.
that as a piece of us that's in our like toolkit for storytelling. But I guess it would be better said that we had a little bit more courage to explore or promote other parts of our interest in music as well this time. And Jackie, I mean, she's just like she's a brilliant cellist, but she's also just a great songwriter. So whereas like we have maybe a primary vocal melody, I mean, she'll come right in and write like a complementary melody to the vocals. And the same thing with a riff. Like we would have a riff and it's kind of in the same range, right? Cello is sitting right there with
Yeah,
guitar. If
yeah,
guitar gets low, it's kind of with cello. And my vocals and the sweet part of the cello is very similar in range. And then
yeah,
adding her vocals, which is kind of similar to my vocals in range, and that
yeah,
we sing. So like we're kind of because we're in the same ranges, the only way for us to make the songs kind of interesting is for us to kind of talk to each other, like me talking to the cello or the guitar and the cello weaving in and out, talking to each other, and to not like stomp on each other, but like compliment each other in that space, in that frequency.
yeah. And then how did you? What was the kind of the thought process behind adding a cello? Was it just from a
Yeah.
personality standpoint? She was just someone that you wanted in the band because you felt kind of a
I mean,
kinship with
Jackie,
her,
she's
or
a
is
bad
it
bitch.
that?
Everybody wants her in the band. I mean,
Yeah,
she's crazy talented and she's super cool to hang out with. And she's just an all-around wonderful person. It was really natural the way we met and started playing together. I was playing a festival and it was right by her house. And this random stranger runs up to me after I'm done with the show and is like, "Are you Susie and Broom? We're gonna play a show together. I like playing with women." And I said, "I am Susie with Broom. Who are you?" And she's like, "Jackie." I was like, "Oh my God, I've been to I know Gracie on. Like, I've been your fan before we even met." Fast forward like maybe 6 months. I wrote this song on the piano on our album before Martin's, which is called Rabbits. And I just wrote a piano song. I was like, I'm just gonna keep it a piano song. So most of the time we turn it into like a riff or like the vocal melody, and then I'd play the bass. But this time I just kept it as a piano song because I liked how it sounded on the piano. And I thought, man, this song would be really beautiful with a little Jackie sprinkle on it. And so I wasn't like, I would like for you to play this part. I just sent her my piano vocal melody and piano part. I was like, here's a song. I would love for you to write a piece and like play with me on this. We'll put it on our next album. And she came back like a month later, is like, how's this? And it was amazing. I was like, how's this? I was like crying when she was done. And so after that, we started playing shows. I'm like, hey, let's play that piano song live.
Mhm.
Hey, you might as well learn two or three more songs live because you're not just going to come up for one song and get people
Right.
crying and then leave. You might as well stay.
Yeah.
And then we just started hanging out, practice together. We started vibing. And then she was like, I'm pretty much in BRUME. I'm like, pretty much in BRUME. And then we just like, let's just write the next album together. We wrote it and it was so fun. And now it's like, I couldn't imagine BRUME without her. I mean, we're a four-piece, you know, and it's just so natural and easy. And we're all kind of, you know, when you play in enough bands and you play enough music, you kind of know who has staying power. And if you're in a band, you know what I mean.
I do. I've been in
You
lots of
know,
bands.
you can vibe somebody that's gonna, you know, this is gonna be awesome for one song, and that's fine. And then sometimes you vibe someone and you're like, oh, I'll see you next Monday for the rest of our lives.
Yeah.
You know, and she
So
just
it
kind
sounds
of
like it was pretty organic. It was pretty organic. It was not because it. Let me ask you this: were you guys looking for a fourth member, whether that would be a second guitar, a saxophone, or and it was? It sounded like it just. You know how
that is a
sometimes.
good plug. Clint Majan Preservation Hall Band. That would be you if I did have a sax player on a BRUME song. So we'll see you on the next album. No, hell no. You know how easy it
Okay.
is to have a three-person band? I
Yeah.
mean, it's traveling, you get a smaller car, you can all cram into one hotel room. Like you split the money with only
Yeah.
three people.
Yeah.
Everything's easy.
All the
Look,
decisions.
no three-piece ever wants a four-piece. It was like
Yeah.
one of these things where like, oh, look, the greatest, most amazing person ever is gelling with the three of us. Like, duh. It just literally was
Yeah.
like, if it wasn't Jackie, it would be no one.
Okay. Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's really interesting because that doesn't always happen, right? As
Mm-mm.
you know, being in bands and being in the music scene, there's a lot of people that you know, they might have a lot of talent, but they're hard to deal with. So that's a big one. If you don't kind of connect on a personal level, it just becomes really difficult. So to get somebody that's a good songwriter, a good singer, and you like to be around, it kind of sounds like you guys struck gold with that.
Yeah, we struck gold.
And so what I want to
100%.
talk about now just a little bit is kind of the new record, Martin, and what you said you wrote the songs probably 2 years ago, but how is it different from earlier releases? And I know we've talked a little bit about how the band has grown and the sound has changed, but kind of what would you say so that people want to listen to it and they want to, you know, go out and buy it and see you guys live? Like why would they what's the kind of idea behind this record and why are you excited about it?
The idea behind the record is to be honest enough to connect with people on a different way. I mean, you know, we're all four different people in our band, and we all have different reasons that we show up every Monday and different tones or intentions behind the music. So, to be honest, I can't really speak for all four of us. I know that like Jamie and I do a lot of the songwriting together. And we had a lot of conversations about being able to connect with everyone and not just someone. And we have talks like that. I mean, like part of the reason that hanging out at metal clubs and punk clubs is because like maybe the rest of the world just doesn't make sense to you.
Yeah.
And we spent a big part of our life being with those people, and they're a family. And like, I can't wait. Like, we're going to talk about San Francisco metal scene in the future. And like, I love that they like are welcoming and loving. And that's how it is in New Orleans. And that's how it is in Baton Rouge. And that's how it is in Houston and all the cities I've lived in.
Yeah.
It's nice to feel a part of something that might be small when you don't really feel like you belong to something that's big. And that's what I always
Yeah.
have loved about metal, punk, you know, going to goth clubs and dancing all night. I just
Yeah.
like, it's fun to be in this like creative scene that is almost like anti-system.
Yeah.
And it feels like you belong in something when in real life you don't feel like you belong to most things. I love that about that.
Yeah.
And that's how we grew up, and that's what we stuck to, and that was our strength, right? But for some reason, and probably with age and lightening up, and I'm not so like angry at society and mad at the world anymore. You know, I'm a mom,
Yeah.
things happen, hormones change. I kind of thought, you know, there is a piece of scenes that is a little bit exclusive.
Yeah.
And that's what I loved about it. And I don't ever want that to go away. It's like I love that feeling. But I was like, in this case and in this state in our life, maybe we want to do something that is more inclusive.
Yeah.
And so, like you'll hear different like metal pieces because that's what we love. But you'll also hear other pieces of this song that's like, we want to include everybody.
Yeah.
Anybody that like might have a sad feeling and wants to feel like somebody understands. We kind of want to be that like understanding voice. And it was
Yeah.
almost like a sweet intention to move into not being exclusive, but being inclusive.
Sometimes the scenes themselves can be limiting, which is why when I first heard this, again, I didn't know what to expect. But when I listened to it, I was like, well, you can't really put it in a box, which is unique, and which is one of the reasons why I reached out. Was I was interested in how, you know, this familiar sound and these kind of melding of two kind of, or three or four different kinds of sounds came about. So that's what was kind of really interesting. And one of the things too is that the vocals, as far as the quality of the vocals, are so good that there's times when the quieter or slower sections of the song really enhance the vocal and you can really get into it. Obviously love the screaming and the aggression and all of that, but it's like when somebody has a really good voice, you want to kind of get into that and hear that and kind of marinate in this thing and not have, because a lot of times, the aggressive guitar and drums can overshadow the vocal, or in some cases hide the vocal because it's not very good. And in this case, it was like, well, these vocals are really powerful and great. So that's kind of, you
Thank
really
you.
want to hear that. And so what I want to do now is I'm going to play a clip of one of the singles, Jimmy, and then we'll come back and talk about the San Francisco scene. So
Yeah.
let's hear a clip from the song Jimmy. So that was the song Jimmy from San Francisco doom pop shoegaze bluegrass band BRUME, and I have Susie McMullen here with me. And what we're going to do now is let's talk about the San Francisco scene and how it's kind of evolved, because it sounds like you've been there for a while. You came from Louisiana. I used to live in San Francisco, so I'm really familiar with, Bottom of the Hill and Kilowatt and Paradise
Yes.
Lounge and Great American
Oh,
Music Hall and all that kind of,
heck yeah.
yeah, all that kind of stuff. So as your sound has evolved, has the audience in San Francisco changed or evolved, or the bands that you kind of were in the scene with?
I have a big girl posse. Okay. Like a bunch of, we call ourselves the bitches from New Orleans. And we're still like best friends. I can't wait to see them. I'm going to see them in a month. And we all might have brought different things to the table. And I don't know if that influenced for someone to bring the same thing to the table. But one of the cool things about the bitches is that we always gave each other permission to grow. You have some friends who are like, oh, if you're not that same person you were like in high school, then I don't know you anymore. You're like, well, fucking, you don't know me anymore then. And then you have those friends who are like, all right, that's the new you. Okay, so Susie, now she decided she wants to do this. Like, that's the new
Yeah.
her. Man, there's just nothing more powerful than that in a girl group, okay, or a friend group. And I think that San Francisco's metal scene is similar. And I'm so grateful for it. Because it was by chance. So we were one way 10 years ago when BRUME started, and we got to know all these guys, right? Because we would play shows in the scene, and um, it was pretty wonderful. Like that is like you get an instant friend group. Like everyone
Yeah.
in a metal band that's ever moved, oh, I lived in Detroit, now I'm in Austin. Like that. Like it's kind of the best part about being in a band. It's like you get this instant friend group where you're kind of passionate about the same things, you talk about the same things, and you
Yeah.
vibe off of each other. But as like BRUME changed our sound and decidedly became like less metal, but we maintain a certain level of like heaviness and like heavy-heartedness that always kind of blended well. We still like mainly play with metal bands when we play shows because that heaviness is still there.
Yeah.
It's just a different kind of heavy. I think that they gave us grace and space to be different, but still we're inclusive in terms of the metal scene, which kind of helped like confidence and going for it. And I think we do the same for them. Like we always get stoked when Chris Corona and, Hazard's Cure and Floating Goat wants to do his own solo project. And it's a sweet, sensitive singer-songwriter on a guitar sound. It's like, hell yeah. Like, I love it. And it's
Yeah.
like, now this is a totally different sound. And I love this too. Or like,
Yeah.
Shane, who's also in Hazard's Cure, has like a country band. Like, of course, it's amazing and brilliant. And you hear him rip on that too in a different way. And
Yeah.
I don't know. I think the the most beautiful thing about the San Francisco metal scene is everyone's ability to let the other person grow and not be stagnant creatively. And that's kind of
Well,
cool. In a
yeah.
scene where you're defined by your coolness of that
Yeah.
scene, not really here. They're like, you're kind of like be who you want. That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's definitely a San Francisco thing and a California thing too, where you can kind of reinvent. California is all about reinvention. And when I lived in San Francisco, it was all about people come from other places and become something they couldn't be in their hometown or in a different state. Because you can be anything, and it's California, and it's the West, and it's this new thing, and it just creates this idea that you could just be whatever you want, and
Yeah,
nobody really knows.
maybe
So,
you're right. And like I always hung out with the weirdos. Like when I talk about the bitch posse from New Orleans, like the badass girls, um, like they were an anomaly. Like we found each other and we stuck together because they were not like the rest of like Baton Rouge, which was a very conservative part of Louisiana, or not like New Orleans, which is like we are like this way and that's like our culture for life. Like we kind of stuck together because we allowed that and we developed this like a 20-year relationship, right? So I guess they're more like San Francisco than they're like their own hometown. And so when I came here, I was like, oh my God, I love this. This is what I love about my best friends. So I think you're right. I never thought about that.
yeah,
It's just
yeah,
a California thing. It's
yeah,
transient. People grow, and
yeah,
that, whether you like it or not.
yeah. And so what I want to talk about now is the recent tour, European tour that you just finished up. I think it was last month or earlier this month.
Yeah.
How many dates did you play, and kind of how long of a tour was that, and what was the overall experience of
Well, we only played 3 days. We were gone for 6 because we like to party. So we like would go to Paris, hang out for a day, drink, eat wine and cheese, and the next day we would play next door to the Moulin Rouge. It was amazing. The first 2 nights we had the honor to open up for Acid King.
it? Oh, nice.
And Lori put out a new album. It's so good. And she played a lot of new songs off of her new album, even though her old albums are beloved and like to the point where they're practically historic. Like, I
Right.
mean, so I would say that experience was wonderful for 2 reasons. One, we got to go to an Acid King show for 2 nights in a row in France. How amazing is that? Like
Yeah.
hanging out, right? We performed in Paris, and it was such a wonderful turnout. And it's so interesting, right? When you're a band in the States and you go to Paris for the first time we ever performed, and we have a fan base there, and you're like, we do? It's shocking,
Yeah.
right? But If you only go somewhere once, then like if you do have one or two fans, those 10 guys will go to that show because that might be the only time,
Yeah.
In San Francisco, everyone was like, BRUME, please, again.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it
And
was
to
like,
that point, do you find that European audiences, how are they different than American audiences, if they are?
oh, yes. I mean, I'm sure everybody's kind of laughing or rolling their eyes when they hear this, if they play in bands and they tour Europe. I mean, Europeans in general, as a people, love rock and roll more than
Yes,
Americans.
they do.
Hands down. Okay. There's not like some people into pop, some people into country. No, this is a rock and roll group of people.
Yeah.
So there's always a bigger crowd and they're more enthusiastic. Like they're
Yeah.
stoked to be there. And you have this like instant connection. It's like this inclusive, exciting, people are stoked, a bigger population, like bigger per capita population that's super into your music. It's
Mhm.
or into any music that you're also into. People just like rock.
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of cool. And London is like the capital of that. It's like if you go to Baton Rouge, Louisiana, that's where I grew up. You go to Baton Rouge, Louisiana, you take all the people into rock, punk, metal, right? And then like that might be 10%. And then 90% of the people are not. They're conservative and they're just not. And I feel like that's the reverse when you're in London. Like it's the exact opposite. And when something's so different than the way you grow up, you just think it's so cool.
Yeah.
Like
For
I'm just
sure.
like tickled. I'm just like completely enthralled the whole time I'm there. I love it. So we ended our tour. We went from Paris to Nantes to um, London, and we ended it playing London Desert Fest, which
Nice.
it's like all of London gets turned upside down, Camden Town, and like every awesome venue you've ever heard of, historical venue, is filled with blazing metal from like 4 p.m. till 10 p.m. and or midnight in our case. And man, it's just the whole thing is such a beautiful experience. I don't know of a festival that is that expansive in just a certain kind of metal as Desert Fest is in London. Like it's huge.
Yeah.
Like maybe Hellfest in France. That one's pretty badass.
Yeah.
That's like a bucket list item. But that's where we ended, and it was so great, right? Because we got to see a lot of bands we've toured with in the past in London. Like we're huge fans of lots of different metal bands in London because Jamie was in a metal band called Gert in London. And so he has a lot of connections that we met a long time ago. And so we've all been corresponding, sharing, singing on each other's albums, playing like we've kind of have this like mini family in London. So when we go there, it feels very homey. It's like being in San Francisco again. We love it. Like it feels comfortable and everyone's very kind and creative and like really excited about the next thing that they're working on. Everyone wants to talk about it. And all you do is
Yeah.
drink pints of beer, gain a ton of weight, and get super inspired.
Yeah. That sounds like a good time. That sounds
It's a
like
good
fun.
time.
Yeah. That's one of the things that's the most fun about playing music is just the creativity once it gets going and meeting other people, and you have instant friends wherever you go and all over the world. And that's one of the things I like doing with this channel is I've interviewed bands from all over the place, and it's really amazing to hear how they've um, the band starts and their records and just the whole process. It's really fascinating. I think it gives an insight for people into what it's like to be in a band and go to Europe and play in Paris and open for Acid King. And like, not everyone can do that. So it's kind of cool to hear those stories. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to play one more track. We only have a few
Right?
minutes left. I'm going to play one more track off the new record from BRUME. The new record is called Martin on Magnetic Eye Records. It's out now. Hopefully everybody can check it out. This one's called How Rude. Okay, everybody, that was How Rude from BRUME's new album, Martin, which is out on Magnetic Eye Records. Check it out. This is Susie McMullen, who does vocal and plays bass, and we have just a couple minutes left. So the last remaining time here, I want to ask you if there's any social media or website or any kind of Facebook or Instagram that people can, kind of follow you guys and track what you're doing.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yes, you can find us at brumeband.com. We're on all social media outlets as Brume SF because we're from San Francisco. And you spell Brume BRUME. Despite it sounds like a witch's broom, but it's Brume BRUME and SF. We're on Bandcamp, Spotify, all major media outlets. We're most active if you want to connect with us on Instagram. And so that would be, Brume Band as our Instagram handle. And we're also on Facebook. And we have a lot of fun videos that Jordan, our drummer, who's also a video editor, has created on our YouTube channel, Brume Band. Yeah, so check us out. We have some awesome stuff coming up. We're about to have a record release. It's not booked yet, but this year in San Francisco, we'll have a record release. We have a couple of fun things coming out, and we're going to start planning our next European tour for next year. So I can't wait to see some familiar faces in Paris again. And we most certainly always stop in London. So we'll be back.
Awesome. So I want to thank Susie McMullen from the SF Pop Doom. What did we say?
I know.
Shoegaze, bluegrass, everything you can think of. It's really great record. Martin, it's out on Magnetic Eye Records. I want to thank you for joining me today. This has been Damon D. One World, One Rock.